As most of you who follow my channel know, I'm a huge proponent of controlled round feed hunting rifles, especially for use in harsh conditions or on dangerous game. As a former gunsmith and a lifelong rifle collector, dealer, and user, you're normally going to find me in the field with either a Mauser 98 or a Winchester Model 70 pattern rifle. But that doesn't mean that I hate or refuse to use a good push feed rifle. In fact, I actually love some push feed designs and actually hunt frequently with push feed rifles. But you have to do your research with a push feed rifle before you buy one and really weigh the pros and cons of rifles in your price range and consider how you intend to use them. The real beauty of a controlled round feed rifle is that all of them are pretty darn good. You know, you aren't going to get some bargain basement $300 throwaway controlled round feed rifle. Pretty much all the controlled round feed rifles on the market today are pretty much top quality. So buying a controlled round feed rifle is always a safe bet. By contrast, push feed rifles are just the opposite. You know, you can get a complete pile of trash like a Thompson Center or a 770, all the way up to a top tier push feed rifle like a Blaser R8. So choosing the best push feed rifle in your price range can be a really frustrating task. So in this video, I'll discuss many of the features that make a push feed rifle great or bad. Let's face it, the real weakness of any rifle is how it extracts and ejects. So that's what we'll discuss first. When bolt-action rifles begin departing from the Mauser-style full-length claw extractor design in the mid-20th century, manufacturers went with many different extractor designs for their newer push-feed rifles. In my opinion, the Remington 700 extractor design is the worst. You know, when I was making money fixing other people's guns, I could have made a career for myself just fixing Model 700 rifles. You know, that tiny fingernail extractor in there does wear out, and they even completely break more often than you think. They're notoriously famous for breaking on hard-kicking, dangerous game calibers, which is why Remington had to stop making production 700s chambered in big bore cartridges. Remington's custom shop will still make you a 700 built in a big bore cartridge, chambered for a big bore cartridge, but you'll get a Socko-style extractor with that rather than the factory little thumbnail extractor. So Remington obviously knows about the problem. Now, Remington attempted to fix this issue years ago by getting rid of the rivet that holds this extractor ring in place and replacing it with a new clip-style extractor. But that new design fails too. Some say it fails more often than the old rivet design, you know, but I can't confirm or deny that. And these 700 extractors absolutely hate headspace gauges. I've seen over a dozen 700 extractors destroyed by headspace gauges over the years. So when you buy a custom high-dollar Remington 700 clone, like the Stiller, you get a M16 style extractor rather than a 700 style extractor with it. So even that aftermarket knows that the Remington 700 extractor is a problem. Next is the sliding style extractor, using the dent and ball extractor system that Savage made famous. This system is also famous for poor extraction, unfortunately. These extractors seem to be the most sensitive to dirt and debris and like to stick in the open position when they get really dirty. These extractors also seem to wear faster than other extractor designs, and there's some debate as to whether or not this design makes the bolt weaker by taking material out of the bolt lug itself. Next up is the Sacco style extractor. You see that right there. Which is definitely a big step above the 700 and Savage style extractors. The Sacco extractor is a pivoting blade style unit that grabs the case securely, is robust, and is more reliable under dirty conditions than the 700 or Savage style extractors. This one feature makes Sacco and Tikka rifles more reliable in bad conditions than any of your typical Remington 700s. And lastly, we get to the king of all push feed extractors, the M16 style extractor. It's called the M16 style extractor, well, because it's like the extractor on an M16. The M16 style extractor is noticeably beefier than the Sacco extractor and is multiple times stronger than the Model 700 and Savage style extractors. Virtually every custom push feed rifle made nowadays use an M16 style extractor. Since the extractor is the weakest part of a push feed rifle, using an M16 extractor really raises the reliability potential of your rifle. I highly recommend this style of extractor. I love that the Weatherby, Vanguards, and Howas use this style extractor, as well as the X-Bolt comes from the factory with these great extractors. So the M16 style extractor is the king of the push feed rifle extractor. The ejectors on most push feed rifles are just a single plunger style ejector. A few rifles like the Sacco 85 use a fixed ejector in a push feed design, but very few modern rifles are built like that. Plunger ejectors generally work okay, but I've personally seen them get stuck when the bolt gets really dirty or gummed up, leaving the shooter with a rifle that won't eject brass. Some rifles like Mauser's M12 and some of the custom shop Remingtons are being produced with dual ejector plungers. Although ejector plungers will never be as reliable as a strong fixed ejector like those seen on controlled round feed rifles, plunger ejectors do have a long history of reliable surface. Even in fully automatic military rifles like the M16. See, they use a plunger style ejector. So a strong plunger style ejector and a perfectly machined bolt should give you years of trouble-free service. I personally don't worry about plunger ejectors from, as long as the rifle's from a quality manufacturer. From a hunting standpoint, a safety is a very important item in my opinion. While it's true, your brain is the real safety, the redundant safety system on your rifle is also very important. Modern production rifles sold in the United States have several different safety types. Some rifles have safeties that only block the trigger sear, like the Remington 700. Other rifles have safeties that block both the trigger sear and the firing pin, like the Browning X-Bolt. A safety that blocks the firing pin is definitely a superior design. The bottom line is that a good safety should always let you load, unload, and do chamber checks with the rifle on safe. You know, you might be on a 7-day elk hunt and get to shoot your rifle one time, you know, but in that 7 days, you'll probably load and unload your rifle 30 times. Hunters have to load and unload their rifle, you know, every time they get into a vehicle, every time they cross a fence, every time they climb, you know, into a tree stand, every time they get back into camp, every time they got to climb over a ledge or a hill or a rock, you know, or for countless other reasons too. So hunters are constantly loading and unloading our rifles, and you want the ability to do that with the safety on, in my opinion. But many hunters also trudge through some really thick brush or wear packs while they hunt, which can accidentally open the bolt handle. You know, so it's nice to have a rifle that has the ability to lock down the bolt when it's on safe, so it doesn't go out of battery. You know, at this point, you might be asking yourself, how can the bolt handle be both locked and unlocked while it's on safe? Well, the answer to that is a 3-position safety. On a 3-position safety, all the way back is full safe. Basically, the bolt, the trigger, and the firing pin are blocked at this point. The middle position, the trigger and the firing pin are still blocked, but it allows you to lift the bolt, to load and unload the rifle and do chamber checks with the rifle on safe. And of course, full forward is fire. Several models of Sako rifles also give you a system that has the convenience of a simple 2-position safety that locks the bolt down while you're carrying it, or, you know, you have it on sling with a backpack on. But it also has a little tiny button right here that releases the bolt and lets you load, unload, and do chamber checks with the rifle on safe. It's a pretty ingenious system by Sako, and I find the system absolutely fantastic. But as they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and the Browning X-Bolt does that, in my opinion. It has a real easy to use 2-position tang safety in the back, and when the safety's on, it locks that bolt down so it doesn't accidentally go out of battery. But it also has a bolt release button on the handle right there. So while this rifle's on safe, you could just press this button in, lift the bolt, load and unload the rifle, do chamber checks. Makes it real safe. You know, this is an ingenious idea that gives you the speed and ease of use of a really nice 2-position tang safety, but the versatility of a 3-position safety. So in my opinion, the X-Bolt really hit a home run with this safety design. Your classic bolt gun is a 2-lug design. This is a remnant from the old Mauser design, you know, where you could only fit 2 lugs on the bolt because of that huge claw extractor that was on there. But as decades passed, you know, many modern push-feed rifles have moved to a 3-lug bolt design. The 3-lug bolt design gives the bolt a shorter lift, you know, usually 60 degrees versus 90 degrees for the 2-lug design. This shorter bolt lift makes clearing a scope much easier, in my opinion, and to me it's a welcome feature. Early 3-lug bolt designs were very stiff and lacked the smoothness of a classic 2-lug design due to the added friction from the 3rd bolt lug. But newer 3-lug designs are really smooth and easy to use. You know, they pretty much perfected the system. Some rifles use many small lugs, you know, like the Weatherby Mark V Magnum has 9 really tiny lugs around the bolt. And the new Mauser M12, I believe, has 6 small lugs around the bolt. But many experts contemplate that 3 large solid lugs might actually be better than a bunch of tiny little lugs. So I personally wouldn't worry about how many lugs a bolt has, as long as it's smooth and you can comfortably clear your scope with the handle. In the rifle world, it's obvious that most manufacturers don't really listen to hunters. The reality is that most serious hunters don't really like detachable magazines. You know, with any rifle that has a detachable magazine, whether it's an M16 or an AK-47 or a Tikka, the detachable magazine is the weakest point on the rifle. The single most important thing a rifle must do is feed ammunition. And detachable magazines add a lot of variables to this process that really aren't necessary for the hunter. You know, anyone who shoots their AR-15 a lot in competition or for business knows that there's great magazines, good magazines, and shitty magazines that all come from the same lot. You know, every 3-gun guy I used to compete with had their best magazines marked, and that's what they used in competition. You know, even my Sako has 3 magazines, but only one of them that I really trust. On really hard recoiling rifles, detachable magazines have been known to fall out of the rifles under recoil, which is why you'll never find detachable magazines on serious dangerous game rifles. You know, when you look at rifles that are really treasured by hunters, you know, such as the Winchester Model 70, the Weatherby Mark V, the Mauser 98, the Kimber 84, the CZ 550, Dakota Arms, and even Rigby rifles, they all have simple hinged floor plate designs. You know, no detachable magazine is going to be as simple as reliable as a simple hinged floor plate is. Many detachable magazines also protrude out the bottom of the rifle and take away that balance point where many hunters like to carry their rifles in the field. You know, but luckily, many manufacturers are starting to put flush mount magazines on their rifles to rectify that problem. You know, in my opinion, if your hunting rifle has a detachable magazine, it must be flush mounted so you can carry your rifle at this point, or rest your rifle on your pack to shoot, and a magazine won't get in the way of that.